And then I said, the differences, the weaknesses, have been artificially magnified. And I picked two of them. Two of the most well-known ones. How much do you have to document explicitly? How much do you have to train explicitly, which TSP gets hammered on? And I argued why we've artificially magnified those differences. Now, the reason I did this was not to convince people that TSP and Scrum were the same. I did it because I wanted people to understand the value in having a system where you could systematically evaluate two process aids and help make a decision. This leads us to one of the problems SEMAT seeks to solve. How do we help people and organizations compare, understand strengths and weaknesses, and make better decisions? Now, I know we've got some process engineers out here, so don't take offense. However, large organizations have full-time process engineers. I know we have at least one here. What do you think is going on in the small and medium-sized companies? When I went into consulting, I worked for a lot of the big defense companies, but I focused on companies which were small and mid-sized. They don't have full-time process engineers. Most of them don't even have process engineers. So what's going on there? How are they making decisions? This is a full-time job, trying to figure out all this alphabet soup and what ones I should be using. And I argue that large companies should also be caring about this, because guess what? This is kind of the big elephant in the room. You have any idea how much software is being subcontracted by the big companies to the small companies that I consult with? It's huge. It's probably a lot more than's going on in the big companies. Let me just give you some numbers on this, just to give you an idea. And Ivar throws around some of these numbers, but I've got a few too. Last year, the SEI published, and they're proud of this, CMMI is a successful process aid. It's a lot of companies, 4,000 companies, this is published. 4,000 companies have adopted the CMMI. By that I mean they've used it to do some level of getting to 2, 3, 4, or 5. That's pretty good. They've also trained 110,000 people in the CMMI. That means there's 110,000 people out there with some level of knowledge to apply it, trained and got some certificate from the SEI. Keep that number, 110,000. CMMI is process engineer focused. You're not going to get a developer to go out and read the 600-page book. Ain't going to happen. So that's what you're going after there, 100,000. Ivar's mentioned the number. Go on out and look at some of the surveys and the statistics on how many software developers there are in the world. You'll find it's between 10 and 20 million. Now here's the point. What do those statistics say? I'll give you one thought on what they might say. I think they say when you're focused on the process engineer, you're focusing on less than 1% of all the software development going on in the world. First differentiator, right here. SEMAT is out to address and help the other 99% that have been ignored for the last 40 years. That's what we're trying to do. Hit the other 99%. Think about the numbers. Now let's look a little bit more on how SEMAT is trying to do this. Some of this shouldn't be a surprise. You probably heard some, but we need to hear this. We need to understand it. Historically, we rely on process engineers to do a number of things. Define processes. Help projects tailor those processes. There's this, the other point I want to make, it's tailor down. We build these big processes, and they're too big, they're too heavyweight, and the idea is, well, we'll just define everything we need and we'll tailor down to the project. This whole idea, which first of all, the CMMI, counter to what people believe, does not say you have to do that. They say you have to tailor. They don't say you have to tailor down. Somewhere out there, organizations all figured out, it must be tailored down. Misinformation. misinformation. And this approach, which most companies are doing, is fundamentally flawed in multiple ways. It's flawed because the assumption is, let's start and assume we got to do everything. And let's make everybody tell us what they don't have to do. This is, you want to see something costly? I got to argue why I don't have to do something. SEMAT's taking the opposite view. Let's define the minimums. The other reason this is fundamentally flawed, by the way, when you do this, if you don't have a common ground, if you just put out here and say, here's everything tailored down, you can tailor down too much. You can throw out the essentials. And I watch this in some companies. Tailoring is abused. They just say, oh, I can tailor. That means you can rip up your processes and do anything. There's no frame of reference. Another reason it's fundamentally flawed, I could go on with these, but I'm probably going to run out of time. Another one is because we tailor up front. That's it. And what happens when we tailor up front, very quickly, we start to go away from reality. They become processes on the shelf, which means they don't reflect what people do. CMATs, first, we start by listening to the people. What do developers do? Listen, because they got a good idea. Then, with the framework, the common ground, we use it as a guidance to then figure out how we can get what we need, and with a language which is easily learned. And to Michael, remember the words, easily learned. They got to be able to learn it in 2 hours. This results in practices easily extended and kept current by developers, reflecting what developers do. This is differentiator number 2. By developers, we're putting it in the hands of the developers. Keep practices alive. Other word, enactment. This is different. This is a differentiator. Okay, let's just look at a few other ones. A kernel of widely agreed essential elements, small closed language. You heard Ian talk about this. We believe in a small closed language because that's going to help communication. And we don't need a lot of extra baggage, extra words that aren't going to help us here. It's going to also solidify that common ground. Well-defined essential elements with states and checklists. Again, this is the way I look at it. It's our conscience. We've lost our conscience, and so it's the reminders. That's all it is. It's just reminders. It can be very thin, and you can learn it quickly. A language easily understood and used. Keep this in mind. We don't have this today. We don't have this today. Not easily used and learned by developers. This is new. Multiple views for multiple competency levels. Supported through separation of concerns. The interesting thing about that separation of concerns, I just think of abstraction. I've taught software engineering at my local university. We've been teaching abstraction as a very good design approach for years. I was teaching this in the 70s. Why can't we, as process professionals, use that same technique to design processes? To me, that's what separation of concerns is. Just use what we've been telling the developers to do when they design software to design our practices. Seems like a no-brainer, but we haven't done it. That's different. That's a discriminator. That's what we're looking to do here. Kernel taught in the universities. Wow, what an idea. I teach software engineering, as I mentioned, and I don't get to do it as much as I like to because of my consulting, but whenever I go over there, this is Binghamton University, I was asked again to do it a couple years ago, and I said, well, what's the curriculum now? Because every time I've done it before, they go, just teach whatever's hot now. You know, you figure it out. And it's like, well, what do you want me to teach? How about Kanban? So we're just teaching the hot thing. That's always going back to ground zero. This is different. We got a lot of people involved in SEMAT. It's incredible the number of professors, university professors I've met and I'm working with. We are engaging in a much larger arena so that we can put this into the universities first, so when kids come out, they got something they can hold on to. We wrote a blog, about 4 of us, about a couple months ago. And it was called Agile and Everything. And it was really misunderstood. It doesn't mean, we weren't trying to say Agile's the answer. What we were saying, when it comes to the way you improve a little at a time. Now, I like Scott Ambler. He's a friend of mine. But he wrote a little anti-blog against it saying, well, you know, sometimes you need a complete reset. Sometimes you can't just do a little of it. And he's right. But I'm going to give you my experience in 40 years. The number of times you have to do a complete reset is down in that less than 1% of what's going on. All the companies I'm working with right now, they are doing a lot of good stuff. So when I go in, I listen first. I find out what's working, and I start incrementally helping them. You know, and I was doing this before I ever met Ivar Jakobsen. And I just found it amazing that his experiences matched my own. This works. Again, what's the difference? We're going after the 99% here. This is the approach that works in 99% of the case. I'm not saying that once in a while you don't need a full reset, but most companies are not in that condition. Now, empower the team to change the method to fit the experience scares some companies. Oh, you're going to let the developers loose. You know what happens when you let developers loose? Chaos, we've seen it. Now think about this. They're right. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The reason it goes into chaos is because there's no common ground. If you let them loose and you don't tell them what you're asking for, you're